Say my name. Hi everyone, it's me. And today, Breaking Bad. Break the bad. Huh, is it bad breaking?
Now, say my name.
John C.
Oh!
You're goddamn right.
Yeah! Film theory.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory.
Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory.
A daily part of your balanced breakfast.
Where's breakfast?
So go ahead, pour yourself some cereal and double check your stevia for ricin', cause today, we're forever changing the way you look at the final scene of one of the greatest television shows of all time. As such, consider this your spoiler alert. No.
Especially this video came out in the year 2015, which is 6 years ago. If you still didn't watch it, then I'm sorry. Spoilers alert, I'm sorry.
Breaking Bad is one of my favorite television shows, one that truly pushed storytelling on TV. Main character Walter White's transformation from a Mr. Rogers-esque chemistry teacher to a meth kingpin of Scarface-level proportions is perhaps the most memorable character arc in television history. And what other televised drama can attest to starting so many memes? From
I am the one who knocks.
to my personal pick,
Yes, science.
the characters, the acting, the pacing, the artistic camera shots, everything about this show was perfect. Well, except for one thing. The ending. Admittedly, ending such an incredible show was an impossible task. There was no way it could satisfy everyone. I mean, Walter White was a character you either loved to hate, hated to love, or hated to hate. There was no middle ground with this guy. And after 6, or I guess 5.5, mind-blowing seasons, Breaking Bad ended with what a lot of people thought was a cop-out. After getting complete closure, apologizing to his wife Skyler, ensuring his children get the remainder of his drug money, killing off the rest of the bad guys, and rescuing his partner Jesse, Walt dies from a combination of a gunshot wound to the abdomen and his returning cancer, all while surrounded by his beloved meth-making equipment. In short, the problem a lot of people had with his ending is that Walt gets everything. He wins. There is no punishment or atonement for all of the awful things he does throughout the series. And let's be honest, he does a lot of awful things. Sure, you may say, oh, he dies, but he dies on his terms. It's a complete victory for Walter White. And that, understandably, frustrated people. But what if I told you there was more to the story? That Walt will face trial and punishment for his crimes? That the ending wasn't as cliched and clean-cut as we've all been assuming the last couple years? In short, are we really sure that the man known as Heisenberg is dead in that final shot? Because let me tell you, I've run the numbers, and he's not. I mean, yeah, he does get a gnarly stomach wound, collapses and lies motionless on the floor for about 20 seconds, as we hear some appropriate blue meth-inspired jams. But is that enough for us to hang our theorist coats up and accept that he's dead? Not a chance!
You're goddamn right.
Oh, gets me every time. Okay, so what am I talking about? Well, according to the universe...
Yes, science! Let me try it. Yeah, science!
University of Maryland Medical Center, the 3 most important factors for determining a person's odds of surviving a gunshot wound are 1. The location of the injury, 2. The amount of blood lost, and 3. How quickly the victim is transported to a hospital. So, let's take them point by point. But before we dive into the location of the injury, we first need to discern the nature of the injury itself. And I know what you're thinking. It's a bullet in his stomach, right? Well, not exactly.
What if it grazed through? Like a cut, you know, it's still a bullet wound, it's just like a scratch like fall on the ground.
Let's recap the final showdown. Walt comes to the neo-Nazi compound with an automated remote-controlled turret built into his trunk. He tackles Jesse to the ground, clicks the button, the trunk pops open, and a barrage of bullets kills almost all the neo-Nazis inside. But what we're most interested in is near the end of the attack, when Walt gets hit by something. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, honestly. All we really do is see him grunt. Now, we know from the opener of Season 5, Episode 2001 that Walt purchased an M60 machine gun with 7.62mm NATO rounds. It's pretty heavy-duty machinery, as evidenced by the fact that it blasted through the side of the trunk and the wall of the neo-Nazi rec room like it was nothing. But let's look at the setup here. It's highly unlikely that Walt was actually hit by one of these bullets.
True, it's impressive. You can hit through the trunk and still have enough momentum to hit through a wall and still have enough momentum to actually shoot people. That's impressive.
First, Walt is too low to the ground. Walter's Hoopty of Death is a 5th-generation Cadillac DeVille, which according to the manufacturer stands exactly 56.7 inches tall, or about 1.4 meters. If we take this photo of Walt standing outside the car and apply some basic algebra and pixel counting, we can conclude that the trunk is 40.5 inches off the ground, or slightly over 1 meter. The M60 shoots slightly lower than the exact height of the trunk, so let's just say it's an even 39 inches, about 1 meter, just to be safe. Considering that the average width of a human being is about 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters, even if Walt and Jesse were planking on top of each other, toe to toe, forehead to forehead, they would still be far lower than the line of fire. I mean, you can even see the difference from the bullet holes in the wall compared to their relative position on the ground. So obviously it's not a direct bullet hit, maybe it's a ricochet. Seems like a solid possibility, except for one thing. According to my research, it seems that higher powered bullets like a 7.62mm NATO round tend not to ricochet. They usually either crush into the object they hit or break apart. Ricochets are much more common with low caliber ammo, such as a 22 or 177. The most likely culprit for injuring Walt then is either shrapnel or a broken piece of a bullet entering from Walter's side. Why the side? Well, because throughout the ensuing scenes, we get a pretty good glimpse at the front and back of Walt's jacket.
So it might not be a bullet ricocheting, it might be a bullet shrapnel. Huh, interesting.
There simply aren't any holes, so the right side is the only option. Okay, so we have a piece of shrapnel entering Walt's love handle. Knowing this, let's look at our medical criteria. Number 1, the location of the wound. We never actually get to see the wound itself, only the blood stain on the lower right side of his shirt, which is such a shame because I really love that shirt on Walt. Given the radius of the blood stain, we can only make an educated guess as to where the entrance wound is. The biggest risk associated with a bullet wound to the abdomen is hitting either the lower aorta or some of the major blood vessels. If such was the case, though, Walter would have keeled over and bled to death very quickly. But that's not what happens. Walter walks, talks, and even tells Lydia that he murdered her with relative grace for over 10 minutes. Now, you could potentially write off a lot of Walt's mobility as shock, but even shock can't keep you alive for 10 minutes if a vital organ's been hit in your body. Now,
when your vital organ's been hit, think about it.
Given the location of blood on Walt's shirt, it's likely that the shrapnel got lodged somewhere in his large intestine. And believe it or not, this is actually good news. Quote, the main concern with gunshot wounds that involve the intestines or stomach is not bleeding, but infections that result from spillage of the contents of those organs. End quote. In other words,
You're gonna wish you were dead, but it takes days to die from your wound.
a study conducted by the medical journal The Annals of Surgery looked at victims of gunshot wounds to the abdomen over a period of 5 years between 1983 and 1987. The survival rate among victims that had no vital organs hit was an astounding 88.3%. That's incredibly high. And with medical technology having only gotten more advanced over the last 30 years, Walt would have a real chance at survival, which means we should move on to the second criteria, amount of blood lost. Now, blood loss is likely the factor that causes Walt to collapse onto the ground and stare blankly up at the ceiling.
Like for example, if you have lost like 1% of your blood, oh that's a lot, that's a lot. 2% of your blood, oh that's a lot. 3, 4, 5, 20% of your blood, oh my gosh.
But the big question here is whether he died due to the blood loss or merely passed out. Well, let's take a look. Although we can't realistically measure the amount of blood that's dripped onto the ground or absorbed onto Walt's clothes, we can draw some encouraging conclusions due to the fact that there's no blood on the other side of his shirt, which means the bullet didn't go through him. Exit wounds leave a much bigger hole than entrance wounds, thereby leading the victim to bleed to death much faster. In other words, this fact buys Walt some valuable time.
The more you know. So, entry wound is significantly smaller than exit wound. The more you know. So, anyways, continue.
Now, one thing that I haven't brought up that I'm sure is on the tip of all your theorists' tongues is that Walt's lung cancer is back, thereby making his body more fragile and perhaps more sensitive to blood loss. But get ready to have your mind blown, because there's research to suggest the exact opposite, that his cancer would have increased his chances of survival. There's actually a significant amount of research that suggests that people with pancreatic cancer, multiple myeloma, and most importantly for our purposes, lung cancer are all more likely to form blood clots. According to Dr. Gene Connors at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, for reasons not quite known, the normal human body will keep a balance between pro-clotting and anti-clotting activity. Apparently, cancer skews that balance in terms of pro-clotting, increasing inflammation and compression of blood vessels, creating more coagulation and actually lessening internal bleeding.
Okay, I didn't know that. What? Huh. Did you know that? Okay.
Long story short, there's actually a high probability that Walt's cancer is limiting the amount of blood he's losing in these crucial minutes. So we have not a full bullet, but a smaller piece of shrapnel entering Walt's body in an area with non-essential organs, Walt's slow tour about the compound showing that the injury's not really that critical, and a situation in which blood loss is slowed via only an entry wound, it being in the intestine, and Walt having cancer. That brings us to the final criteria of determining the likelihood of survival: speed at which the victim gets medical attention. If Walt were alone somewhere in the New Mexico desert, this would be an open and shut case. He would have bled out and died. But the final shot shows us a unit of police officers descending on him almost immediately after he collapses. Are they DEA? Albuquerque PD? If we zoom in on the arm patch, the shape and color definitely indicate that it's Albuquerque PD. According to code 02-11 of the Albuquerque Police Department Procedural Orders Manual, quote,
Wow, wait. Let's just give respect to the film theorists that they actually do so much research onto such stuff for video. That's super impressive.
Department policy is to ensure that medical care is provided to arrested persons, intoxicated persons, when such care is needed, based on approved medical and legal procedures. So not only are the police obligated to give Walt medical attention, but let's not forget that the Walter White case is a national story. They want Walt to see trial. They want Walt to live so that he can confess to
and be faced justice in front of everyone. National case.
all the unsolved murders he's been involved with. It is in their best interest to keep him alive so that these cases can be concluded. Add to that the fact that it's reasonable to assume that there's a standard issue trauma kit in at least one of those cop cars, and most every police officer is trained to dress a gunshot wound, so Walt's bleeding would have been significantly reduced as soon as a minute after he collapsed. And if you're looking at this from a timeline standpoint, he literally just collapsed. We even see the police cars rushing past seconds before he falls to the ground. And here's a big piece of evidence for you. Why are the cops even there? Who called them? The pile of dead neo-Nazis certainly didn't. Walt and Jesse didn't do it. The most likely case is that someone nearby heard the M60 gunshots and called the cops. What that tells us is that although we're never given a real location for Jack's neo-Nazi day camp, it means we're close to civilization. Based on the length of that last scene, it took 10 minutes for the cops to arrive at the location. That also means that there's likely a hospital in that vicinity. So looking at all the pieces of evidence, considering the wound didn't hit any vital organs, was a smaller piece of shrapnel, didn't leave an exit wound, that clotting was increased due to cancer, and that help was on the scene immediately after his collapse, and Walt got medical attention somewhere in the realm of 20 minutes from the time he was shot, there's a high probability that Walt survives this last scene of Breaking Bad. But you don't have to believe me or all the research I did. Just trust the creators of the show. If you look really closely at that final moment, you see the officer reach out and check for Walt's pulse. And then the scene cuts out before we get his reaction. We don't actually see the results of that test. Think this was a coincidence? Heck no. It was a purposefully done move by a creative team who thought through every last detail of every shot in this show. What seemed like a clear-cut and kinda cliched ending is actually open to interpretation. We just saw the easy, obvious answer, but by doing the research, you see that there's a lot more ambiguity to that final scene. And to that, I only have one thing to say.
One more episode!
Yes, science!
And
Yes,
before I
I-
sign off, if you want more fun and fascinating Breaking Bad analysis, click on the eye icon in the upper right part of the screen to check out my friends over at the Wisecrack channel, who are doing an incredible 5-part series exploring the hidden meaning of each season of Breaking Bad. Relive all the magnets and tighty-whitey goodness with their hilarious and thought-provoking show, Earthling Cinema. Show your theorist pride, tell them Matt Pat sent you, and I don't know, leave some sort of trolling comment about how Walt isn't dead. Also, if I was you, I'd probably subscribe while I was over there, but you know, your call, your prerogative. And with that being said, remember, that's just a theory. A film TV theory. And cut. You know what the coolest thing about all of this is? It leaves open the possibility of seeing Walter White's trial appear on Better Call Saul. Wouldn't that be incredible? To see the return of these characters? Make it happen, Vince Gilligan. Make it happen, please. Here, click the bag of blue meth to check out that Breaking Bad miniseries I mentioned over on the Wisecrack channel. Or if you want something truly scary, click the Terminator to see how we'll all be slaves to computers within the next 30 years. Fair warning, the future gets intense, and you'll never look at your laptop the same way again. Now, if you'll excuse me, all this Breaking Bad talk has got me a hankering for some delicious fast food chicken, like El Pollo Loco or something. Don't know why exactly. Strange.
Interesting. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that this video has been very interesting and scientific. Hopefully. If you do like this video, please remember to like, share, subscribe to my channel, and comment down below if you think don't forget to follow my channel. And I'll see you in my next video. Thank you so much. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. TV theory. One more time. But hey, that's just a theory. A film TV theory. Thanks for watching. And cut. Oops, sorry. Subscribe. Thank you so much. Subscribe. Subscribe. Thank you.